What's your excuse for being broke? You know what's crazy? The more I'm on the internet, the more I'm exposed to people who are haters. And one thing I've noticed about haters is that haters always have an excuse for why they're broke. Guys, the more I've made videos on YouTube, the more I've ran into the outspoken voice who says, Scott, all of your accomplishments don't mean shit. And I'm here to dissuade you from that type of thinking. It's a cope. It's a cope. You know, in my entire life, I have never heard a successful person say all of your financial gains, all of your material wealth, all of your career accomplishments mean nothing. I have never heard that from a successful person. The only time I've heard that is when it's a person who hasn't accomplished anything in their life. And the more I think about it, the more I have to say, maybe I can see why they would think that way. If you're a guy who's never accomplished anything in your entire life, anything significant, you've never been on the top of the mountain, you're going to be at the bottom pointing at the guys climbing the mountain and laughing. Look at these idiots. They risk their lives to climb Mount Everest for what? You're not going to understand. You know, the thing is, maybe I haven't put myself in your shoes. I haven't put myself in the shoes of a lazy bum who tries to find excuses for why they're not successful. Right? But as I'm making this video, it's starting to dawn on me. Of course, you're going to point and laugh at the guy who's on top of Mount Everest because you've never accomplished anything significant in your life. You've never put yourself in a difficult situation where you had to work hard to accomplish something. And so you think that me getting enough money to afford a McLaren supercar, me being able to buy a $20,000 Rolex, me living in a nice apartment, me getting the girl I want, me getting social respect means nothing because you've never had any social respect. You've never put yourself in a situation where you had to really overcome the odds. So you don't get it. Now that I think about it, it makes perfect sense. But that's the reason I'm making this video, to shatter that illusion, to shatter the illusion of it making sense that you don't have the stuff that you dream of. You know, sitting back in the corner, criticizing the people that are actually doing the work. That person's parents helped them. It's daddy's money. Always finding an excuse. It's a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism. I need you to wake up. I need you to smell the roses. I need you to really think about where you're trying to go in this life and why you haven't reached that goal yet. You know, do some self-reflecting. I think that most of the time, the people that I hear from that are hating on me, the people in my chat, the people I meet, actually, I'm going to say in real life, but in real life, I've never had anybody say this to my face. It's always on the internet. It's always the anonymous comment. It's always the loudest voice in the room who's hiding in the shadows, afraid to show their lifestyle, who says this to me on the internet. In real life, everybody seems to agree with me on this topic. In real life, I don't think I've ever had anybody ever come up to me and say, Scott, your accomplishments mean nothing. It's always been the hater on the internet. And I've never heard a person or seen a person who's successful say it either. It's always the person who has never done anything and has not accomplished anything that wants to criticize the people that are actually making it. They want to criticize the guy with the supermodel wife. They want to criticize the guy with the Lamborghini. They want to criticize the entrepreneur who has several different businesses. They want to discount their accomplishments to make themselves feel better. Do you want to be that person, though? That's the question I have for you. Do you want to be the guy who, instead of working hard and reaching that summit, climbing Mount Everest, do you want to be the guy sitting at the bottom at base camp, laughing at the guys who are putting in the work? If you don't want to be that guy, maybe I'm the person you want to listen to, right? A guy who started at base camp and climbed that mountain. You know, and I'm still climbing the mountain. You know, you never really finish climbing that mountain. The mountain of success is an eternal mountain. You decide where you want to stop. But I sure as hell not going to stay in base camp and criticize the people that continue climbing. I'm sure as hell not going to say, oh, the reason I wasn't able to climb the mountain is because of this guy over here, or that guy over there, or my parents, or my ancestors, or the white man. But this all comes back to accountability, right? If you're a person who holds yourself accountable for your actions, for the outcome of your decisions, you're going to be able to see the fallacy in that way of thinking, the ignorance in that way of thinking. And for the most part, the people who have that way of thinking, the people who lack accountability, those are going to be the people who are going to point at the rich guy and say, that don't mean anything. Money doesn't mean anything. The other thing I've noticed is the people that say that money isn't everything, the people who say that material things mean nothing are always angry. They always have anger. And I can tell you why. I can tell you why you're so angry. The reason you're so angry is because you're not happy with where you are in life. You're not happy at where you are in life. And you see a guy like me, a guy who in your mind you think is beneath you, a guy who in your mind you think hasn't earned what he has, and it makes you angry. You think to yourself, how the hell is Scott Leonard beating me at life? Scott Leonard is not more intelligent than me. Scott Leonard is not more attractive than me. Scott Leonard is not more industrious than me. Actually, I am, but I'll digress on that point. Scott Leonard should be beneath me. So how is it possible that Scott Leonard is beating me? How is it possible that Scott Leonard is able to go on the internet and flaunt his success while I'm putting the fries in the bag? And that makes you angry. That makes you want to lash out. And instead of opening your ears, uncovering your eyes, and really listening to what I am telling you, really listening to the message, you say, Scott Leonard is arrogant. You say, he must be doing something weird to get this success. It's daddy's money. That's the first cope. That's the usual first cope. Second cope is he's probably scamming. He's probably selling drugs. He got lucky. You have a Rolodex of excuses, and you don't realize that the fault lies with you. The fault is all your own. You know, you might be better looking than me. You might be smarter than me, but you still ain't gonna beat me. You know why? Because I'm putting in the work. I'm putting in the effort. I've done my time. Meanwhile, you sat in the shadows complaining, looking for an excuse as to why you're not successful, why you haven't made it. Nobody's going to show up at your front door and give you a trophy. Nobody's going to show up at your front door and carry you to the top of Mount Everest. You need to go out and do it yourself. You need to go out and put in the work. Do some self-reflecting. I promise you, if you stop making excuses, if you stop being an online hater, and you lock in, you find your passion, you find your goal, and you zoom into that goal, put all your effort, all your energy, all your time, all of your emotions towards that goal, you will make it. But you know what? You can forget everything I said. You can say Scott Leonard is full of shit. Scott Leonard is a fake. Scott Leonard is a fraud, and continue putting the fries in the bag. But I'll tell you one thing. When I pull up at that McDonald's drive-thru, you better put the ketchup in the bag with the fries. Because there's one thing that I cannot stand. When I go through the drive-thru, I get back to my house, I open up my bag, and I'm missing the goddamn ketchup.